worked hard, lived simply, and built a life far away from the chaos of Earth. They thought they were too small, too far to ever be part of any war. But that belief was about to break. High above the colony, in the cold silence of space, something strange appeared. A shadow passed over the moon. It moved too smoothly to be natural. No light blinked, no signal came. It just floated, silent and dark, watching. On the surface, most colonists didn't notice. But inside the colony's small control center, alarms quietly began to blink red. Zara, a young systems engineer, leaned closer to her screen. Her heart started to beat faster. She zoomed in. The object wasn't from Earth. And it wasn't a rock. It was a ship, large, black, and unknown. Zara pressed the emergency call button. Captain Rami, the retired soldier who now worked as a mechanic, rushed into the room. His eyes went straight to the screen. He didn't speak for a few seconds. Then he said something that made Zara feel cold. "That's not a friendly ship." She asked, "Maybe it's just passing by?" But Rami shook his head. "That ship is scanning us, watching us. They're not here for peace." Within hours, the colony changed. Everyone who could fight gathered in the main hall. There weren't many. Most were farmers, builders, teachers, not soldiers. They listened as Rami explained the situation. "We don't know who they are, but they think we're weak. They think we're an easy target. Maybe they're right. We have no real weapons, no defense systems, but we do have each other, and we do have a choice. Run or fight." The room went silent. Zara stood up. "We can't run. We're too far, and we don't have enough ships." A young man added, "Even if we try, they'll catch us in space." Slowly, the people began to understand. If they wanted to live, they had to stay. And if they stayed, they had to fight. But how could they fight? The colony was built for farming, not war. The old defense grid hadn't worked in years. The training rooms were now storage. The battle drones were covered in dust and rust. Still, hope began to grow. Zara remembered some old blueprints stored in the data core, plans for defense drones, traps, and emergency systems left by the first colonists. Rami began checking the old military supplies, finding a few rifles, armor, pieces, and explosives. A small team of volunteers followed him. They weren't trained, but they had strong hands and brave hearts. They began fixing what they could. Tools were turned into weapons. Farm equipment was reshaped into traps. Meanwhile, in the sky above, the alien ship moved closer. It still made no contact. No signal. Just silence. And that silence was worse than any threat. On the fourth night, the ship released small probes. Black machines that flew low over the colony, scanning buildings, people, defenses. The colonists tried to shoot them down, but the probes were fast and quiet. They vanished into the sky after gathering data. Rami looked at the path they followed. "They're preparing," he said. "They'll attack soon." Children were sent into the underground shelters. Food and water were stored in safe zones. The colony's lights were dimmed. They didn't want to show too much, but deep inside, the people were scared. Some whispered that maybe it was over. Maybe they were already dead. But every time someone said that, Zara replied, "No, we're still breathing. And as long as we breathe, we fight." The fifth night was the worst. The sky turned red as strange clouds formed above the mountains. The alien ship began to glow. Then a loud hum spread across the land. Windows shook. Machines stopped working. The colony's power grid flickered. It was some kind of test, some kind of warning. But the colonists didn't run. They stayed, they waited, and they prepared. In a dark corner of the colony, inside, an old storage room, Zara opened a sealed metal door. Behind it were machines, old, heavy, broken, but powerful. They were the last of Earth's forgotten weapons, left long ago in case of emergency. She turned to Rami, who had followed her, and said, "We're not completely helpless." He nodded. "Then let's remind them who we are." Outside, the air was cold and quiet, but inside the hearts of the colonists, a fire was rising. They were not trained warriors. They were not ready, but they were human, and they would not go down without a fight. And far above, in the alien ship, Commander Zalith watched the colony. He smiled and whispered in his strange language, "Weak, soft, this will be easy." But he was wrong. The colony was waking up, and the fight was just beginning, quickly. Sleep was forgotten. Every hand was busy, repairing, building, preparing. The air was heavy with fear, but also something else, purpose. They knew an attack was coming, and now they were working against time. Zara stood near the broken defense tower, holding a tablet filled with old schematics. The tower hadn't worked in years, but the core system was still there. "If I can restart the energy lines," she said to herself, "maybe we can at least control the front gate." Nearby, a boy no older than 12 handed her a bundle of wires. "My dad said these might help," he whispered. Zara smiled weakly. "Thanks. Tell your dad to stay close to the shelters." Across the colony, Captain Rami gathered the volunteers. There were about 20 of them, young and old, men and women, none of them trained for war. Still, they followed him. In a broken-down shed, he placed an old Earth military rifle on the table. "This is the only full weapon we have," he said. "But we're not just going to shoot, we're going to think smarter." They started collecting anything useful: pipes, chemicals, broken machines, old solar panels. A group of miners brought in their tools. "These drills can cut rock. Maybe they can cut metal too," one miner suggested. Rami nodded. "We'll use them. Every bit helps." Zara, meanwhile, focused on the drones. In a dark underground storage unit, she found 3 old security bots. Covered in dust, their circuits were dry and batteries dead. Still, the metal was solid, and the programming could be fixed. She called in Mira, a young tech genius who had once worked on farming bots. "If we connect a solar cell here," Zara said, pointing, "and give it basic targeting, do you think it'll move?" Mira grinned. "Let's make it walk." While they worked, the alien ship remained in the sky, watching. It made no move, no sound, but everyone felt it. The presence was heavy, like a storm waiting to fall. Every now and then, small objects dropped from the ship, more probes, collecting more data. One crashed into a building and exploded. No one was hurt, but the message was clear. This was not peace. This was a test of fear. At night, the colonists gathered, around fires, speaking quietly. Rami told them stories of old battles, of how humans once fought creatures far stronger than them. "We're not weak," he said. "We adapt. We survive. That's what makes us dangerous." Some of the older colonists remembered stories from Earth, of the human expansion wars. Back then, humans were feared, but that time had passed. Now, they were farmers again, builders, dreamers. But under threat, the old fire returned. The next morning, the first real warning came. A group of small alien attack drones flew over the eastern ridge. They didn't fire, but they didn't need to. Their job was to scare, and it worked. One of the farmers dropped his tools and ran straight into a wall. People screamed, but Rami shouted over them, "Hold your ground!" And surprisingly, they did. Zara activated the first working drone. It stood up, shaky and slow, but it moved. The crowd clapped. "This is one," she said. "We'll have more soon." She looked at Mira. "Can we paint them to look like we have 20?" Mira laughed. Oh, they'll look like monsters if we want. Meanwhile, traps were being set. The miners helped dig hidden holes. Engineers rigged explosives under bridges. Even the children helped by drawing maps and marking places where aliens might land. This was their home. They knew every tree, every wall, every hidden path. That evening, something unexpected happened. A voice spoke, through every speaker, every radio. It was deep, mechanical, and cold. You are surrounded. Surrender now. There will be no pain. Resistance is foolish. The voice repeated the message in several languages. Then it stopped. No one moved. A heavy silence followed. Rami looked at the crowd and said, "They think fear will break us." He looked at the loudspeaker. "They don't know humans." A small boy stepped forward, holding a stick like a weapon. "We fight," he said simply. The people around him began to cheer, quietly at first, then louder. "We fight! We fight!" The message was spreading. Fear was turning into fire. Zara and Mira finished the second drone that night. It was faster than the first. It even had a name, Clunker. The children named it. They believed in it. Hope was strange like that. It could live in machines, in traps, in old stories. The aliens didn't attack that night, but the colonists knew it was coming. They stood on the walls, holding whatever weapons they had. Rami carried his old rifle. Zara held a controller for the drones. And above them, the enemy ship glowed brighter. Far away, in the alien warship's control room, Commander Zalith watched. "They prepare," he said. "Interesting." His officer asked, "Should we crush them now?" Zalith shook his head. "No. Let them struggle. Let them hope. The fall will taste sweeter." But he did not understand humans. Hope is not weakness. Hope is fuel. And the people of Meridia were now on fire. The sun rose slowly over Meridia, but no one watched it. All eyes were on the sky. Today was the day. Everyone felt it. Even the birds were silent. The colony stood ready as they could be. Makeshift walls, old machines, hidden traps, all. Built in the last few days, it wasn't much, but it was something. Zara stood at the control center, hands shaking slightly as she checked the drone systems. 2 were active. 1 more was almost ready. Clunker and Buzz were already patrolling the perimeter. Loud, clumsy, but still moving. That gave people hope. Mira gave a thumbs up from the corner. "Batteries holding. We can get 10 minutes of full power if they don't overload." Captain Rami stood on the east wall, looking through a pair of cracked binoculars. His old soldier instincts were screaming. "They'll come at sunrise," he said. "They always come when the light hits your eyes." He looked down at the people standing behind the walls. Farmers with hammers, teachers holding sharpened sticks, miners with laser cutters. It wasn't an army, but it would have to be. Then the sound came. A low hum, growing louder every second. People froze. The ground began to shake. Birds flew away in panic. "Positions!" Rami shouted. Everyone rushed to their posts. Families, hid in the shelters underground. Only the fighters stayed above. In the distance, 5 alien dropships broke through the clouds. Black and sharp like blades, they came fast, cutting across the sky. Lasers fired from below, small, weak shots from the colony's repaired defense tower. 1 shot hit a dropship, but it didn't stop. "Brace!" someone yelled. The dropships landed hard outside the colony wall. Metal claws slammed into the dirt. Hatches opened. Then came the aliens. They were tall and armored in black, with glowing red eyes and weapons in their hands. 20 of them marched forward, slow and confident. One of them spoke through a voice box. "Lay down your tools. You have no chance." No one moved. Then, Rami raised his rifle. He didn't shoot yet. He just aimed. That one move told everyone what to do. The first trap was triggered. A line of explosives hidden under the dirt exploded, throwing 2 alien soldiers into the air. Screams broke the silence. The rest of the colonists began firing, throwing, running. The battle had begun. Zara activated Clunker and Buzz. The 2 drones moved toward the attackers, shooting low-level stun rounds. 1 alien was knocked back. Surprised. The drones weren't strong, but they were loud and fast. They confused the enemy, gave the humans a few extra seconds. Aliens returned fire. Blue plasma shots tore through a wall. A teacher was hit. She fell, but not before pushing a child behind cover. Miners used smoke bombs from the tunnels, covering the field in gray fog. The aliens' red eyes glowed through the mist, but they hesitated. They hadn't expected resistance like this. Mira ran between buildings, carrying tools, fixing broken wires, resetting traps. She wasn't a soldier, but she was saving lives. At one point, she reached a power box and shouted, "Zara, if I reroute this line, I can overload the tower. Big burst, one time only." Zara nodded. "Do it when they're close." The battle moved into the colony. Aliens broke through a side gate. Inside, humans fought with everything they had. One man used a shovel to block a plasma blade. Another used a mining drone to pin an alien to the ground. It was brutal, loud, scary, but the humans didn't fall back. They pushed forward. Then came the key moment. 10 aliens grouped near the center. Too close. Rami saw them from the tower. He shouted into the radio, "Now! Hit the tower!" Mira slammed her hand on the panel. A huge blast of energy shot from the tower core, bright and white like lightning. It hit the center of the alien group. They screamed, dropped their weapons, and fell. Not dead, but out. Silence returned for a moment. Then cheers rose from the colonists. The remaining aliens ran. Some carried the injured. The rest escaped. Back to the dropships. They didn't fight again, they left. But the humans didn't celebrate long. Rami called out, "Check the wounded! Watch the skies!" Zara ran to the shelter door, helping people come out. Children cried, but also smiled. They were safe, for now. Later that night, the colony sat, together in the center square. Fires burned quietly. Food was passed around. No one laughed. Not really. Too many were hurt. A few had died. But there was something else in their eyes. Something new. Pride. "They thought we would surrender," Rami said. "They were wrong." Zara stood beside him. "They tested us. We passed." But up in orbit, aboard the alien command ship, Commander Zalith was watching the replay. He didn't look angry. He looked curious. "They fight harder than expected," he said. One of his officers asked, "Should we prepare the main force?" Zalith shook his head slowly. "No. Let them enjoy their small victory. Then we bring the real storm." Back on Meridia, the people repaired walls and cared for their wounded. They didn't know what Zalith was planning, but they knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. The first battle had been won. But the war had just begun, you said? 2 days passed since the first battle. Meridia was quiet again, but not calm. Everyone knew it was only the beginning. The aliens had tested the colony and lost. Now they would return stronger. The colonists repaired what they could. Broken walls, burnt shelters, cracked tools, and they buried their dead with silent tears and clenched fists. Zara walked through the command shed, checking every cable, screen, and signal line. Her eyes were tired, but her hands moved quickly. "They're watching us," she muttered. "They always watch before they strike." Mira was nearby, attaching new metal plates to Clunker. "We need more time," she said. "More power, more bots, more everything." Captain Rami sat with a group of scouts. They had maps spread across a table made from old crates. "This ridge," Rami said, pointing, "is too open. We need cover." If they land again, we hit them from both sides. One of the scouts, a teenage girl named Lena, nodded. We found caves, empty tunnels from the old mine. We can hide in them. Rami smiled. Good. We use our land. This is our ground. That afternoon, a message arrived, burned into the sky by strange alien light. 4 words hovered in glowing symbols above the colony. This is your last chance. People gathered and stared at it. No one spoke. Then someone threw a rock at the sky. The message faded. That was their answer. That night, strange sounds came from the horizon. Deep hums, metallic echoes. The air shimmered like heat waves. They're moving, Zara whispered. Something big is coming. She wasn't wrong. The next morning, the sky was black, covered by clouds, but not clouds from nature. These were machines. A massive alien warship now hung above Meridia like a second moon. It didn't move. It just floated silently. Below it, dozens of alien machines began to descend. Not soldiers this time. Walkers. Tall, 2-legged attack. Machines, with glowing cannons and armored shells. The colonists had never seen anything like it. War walkers, Rami said grimly. They're done playing games. Still, no one ran. Instead, they gathered in the central square. Rami stood on a crate speaking to the people. We beat them once, not because we had better weapons, but because we stood together. If we run now, we lose everything. Our homes, our future, our freedom. Zara added, we've hacked some of their signal. We know how these walkers think. They follow patterns. We can use that. Everyone began preparing again. The children were sent to deep tunnels. The elders helped build traps in the caves. The miners loaded their drilling bots with explosive charges. Mira and Zara worked day and night to bring a 4th drone online, an old security unit twice the size of Clunker. They called it Storm. Storm was slow but strong. It had a heavy shell and a high-energy pulse weapon. Only one shot, Mira warned. But if it hits right, it can bring down a walker. That night, the sky opened. Walkers landed outside the colony in perfect lines. 15 of them. Behind them, hundreds of smaller drones hovered. And then the voice returned, echoing through every device, every screen, every speaker. Final warning, surrender or be erased. No one moved. The walkers began to march. Rami gave the signal. Now! The valley exploded. From both sides of the hills, hidden charges blew. The front 2 walkers stumbled and fell sideways. Smoke and fire filled the air. From the tunnels, colonists rushed out with tools and weapons, attacking the drones. Buzz and Clunker moved fast, distracting the smaller machines. Storm stood in the center, targeting one of the larger walkers. Its cannon lit up, blue and blinding, and fired. A direct hit. The walker shook, sparks flying, then collapsed. The colonists cheered, but only for a second. More walkers moved forward, stepping over their fallen allies. Their cannons charged, buildings shattered, fire rained down. A shelter exploded. People screamed, but they didn't stop fighting. Lena led a group of scouts into the walkers' blind spot, using smoke bombs and mirrors to confuse their targeting systems. A miner drove a cargo hauler filled with fuel barrels, straight into a walker's leg. He jumped out just before it crashed. The explosion tore the machine apart. Zara coordinated everything from the command room. She moved her drones like chess pieces. Clunker, flank left. Buzz, distract that drone swarm. Her voice never shook, even when the walls around her trembled. Rami fought with a stolen alien rifle, covering the escape of wounded colonists. Fall back to the traps, he ordered. As the aliens advanced, they triggered more hidden explosives. It wasn't enough to stop them, but it slowed them. Then the main ship above the colony began to glow. A large weapon opened beneath it, a cannon the size of a building. Zara gasped. If it fires, we're finished. Rami called over the radio. All charges to the central spike. Hit it now. Every remaining drone, every miner, every fighter rushed toward the center of the colony. They planted bombs, machines, fuel tanks, anything that could burn. They looked up. The cannon was charging. Mira yelled, "Now, Zara!" Zara closed her eyes and pressed the button. The ground erupted. A pillar of flame shot up, hitting the cannon just before it reached full power. The sky shook. The ship pulled back, its weapon damaged. Smoke filled the air. The ground burned, but the colony still stood. The alien army retreated again. Rami dropped to one knee, breathing heavily. His clothes were torn. His face was bruised, but he smiled. "They thought we'd give up," he said. Zara looked at the black sky. "Now they know. We never will." But far above, deep inside the alien ship, Commander Zalith stared at the damage. His expression was cold. "Humans," he said quietly. "Primitive, but not predictable." His officer asked, "Should we destroy them now?" Zalith's red eyes glowed. "No. Let them feel hope. Then we erase them completely." And once again the countdown to war began. The fires from the last battle still burned when the new threat arrived. Everyone in Meridia was tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of fixing broken walls. Tired of losing friends. But they didn't stop. They couldn't. The aliens weren't finished. And deep down, the colonists knew the worst was still coming. Zara sat alone in the command shed, staring at the cracked screen in front of her. A new signal was coming from space. It was strong, strange, and very clear. "Your resistance is noted. We are sending the purifier." Her fingers froze. "What's a purifier?" Mira asked, standing behind her. Zara didn't speak at first. She just zoomed in on the signal pattern. It wasn't a warship, not a fleet. It was something else. "It's not meant for war," Zara whispered. "It's meant to erase." In the sky, the stars began to disappear, one by one, as something enormous blocked the view. It was like a black hole moving through space, but it wasn't a natural thing. It was the purifier, bigger than a city, silent, and heading straight toward Meridia. Panic spread fast through the colony. People gathered in the center, watching the giant shadow above them. It didn't fire, it didn't speak. It just hovered. "Captain." Rami stood on the main tower, staring through his binoculars. "I've seen warships. I've seen bombers. But I've never seen anything like that." His voice was calm, but his hands were tight around the railing. "What do we do?" someone asked. Rami looked at them. "We do what we've always done. We fight." "But how do you fight something that doesn't even move?" Zara stepped forward. "We find its weak spot. Everything has one. And if we can't find it..." She paused. "We create one." The plan was risky, maybe even crazy. But it was the only chance they had. They had to get inside the purifier. The old mining tunnels were deep and wide. Some even reached beyond the colony's main borders. A long time ago, these tunnels were used to dig precious metals. Now, they would be used to strike at the heart of the enemy. Mira and her engineering team fitted a drill bot with old rocket boosters and explosives. "It won't fly pretty," she warned, "but it'll get us there." Rami selected 5 of the strongest fighters. Zara joined 2. They loaded into the mining bot, sealed the hatch, and began their climb through the tunnel. The bot shot upward, like a bullet, bursting through the ground and into the sky, straight toward the underside of the purifier. Alarms rang. Drones rushed toward them. But the bot was too fast. It hit the purifier's outer layer with a thunderous crash and drilled straight inside. Inside the alien machine, everything was cold, black, silent. Walls pulsed like veins. The floor glowed under their boots. Rami held. his weapon tight. "Stay together." Zara checked her scanner. "There. That way. I think that's the control core." They moved carefully, passing strange machines and alien symbols. None of the aliens were there. No soldiers, no guards, just machines doing unknown tasks. It was like being inside a living thing. Finally, they found it. A large chamber with a glowing sphere floating in the center. This was it. The brain of the purifier. Zara stared at it. "If we destroy this, the whole thing might fall. Or it might explode," Mira said. "We're out of time," Rami said. "Set the charges." They placed the explosives around the sphere. As Zara armed them, a cold voice echoed through the chamber. "You are not supposed to be here." A wall opened. An alien stepped out. Not like the others. This one was taller, covered in silver armor. Its eyes were bright blue. "You fight well," it said. "But this is where you end." It raised a long weapon. Rami fired first. The alien dodged. Fast. Too fast. It moved like liquid metal. The others joined the fight. Lasers, plasma bursts, blades. The chamber shook with energy. Mira took a hit. She fell screaming, but still conscious. Zara pulled her behind cover. Rami tackled the alien from behind, knocking its weapon away. "Now, Zara!" he shouted. Zara hit the detonator. The charges exploded with a blinding flash. The control core cracked. The walls screamed. Lights went red. The purifier began to fall. Outside, the colonists watched in shock as the massive shadow in the sky shook and twisted. Then it began to drop, slow at first, then faster, falling like a dead star. Rami's voice crackled over the radio. "We did it! Get everyone to cover!" The purifier crashed into the far hills, far enough from the colony to avoid total destruction. The ground shook for miles. Dust covered the sky. And then, silence. Later, the rescue team found them. Rami was bruised. Mira was hurt but alive. Zara had burns on her arms. But they were alive. They had done the impossible. That night, the people of Meridia gathered again. No speeches this time, just silence. And then, slowly, clapping. First one person, then 5, then the whole colony. For the first time, hope wasn't just a word. It was real. But in orbit, Commander Zalith watched the fall of the purifier, his hands clenched. "This ends now," he hissed. He turned to his fleet. Smoke still rose from the ground. The battle was over, but Meridia was quiet. Too quiet. The wind moved through burned buildings and broken towers. Ash floated in the air like snow. The land had changed forever. Zara sat on a rock near the crater, where the nest had once stood. Her arm was bandaged. Her face was dirty, but her eyes were steady. She had survived. Behind her, Mira lay in a medical pod. She was alive, barely. Doctors worked non-stop. Some said she'd wake up. Others weren't sure. But everyone hoped. Rami didn't make it. His name was the first added to the wall of heroes, carved into stone by hand. Buzz sat on the edge of the wall, his small body twitching now and then, making a sad, low sound. Clunker, missing one arm, stood guard beside the last standing gate. No one told him to do it. He just did. The colony had lost half its people, but no one ran. They stayed. And they began to rebuild. Not because it was easy, but because they wanted. To prove that Meridia was more than a dot on a map. It was home. Weeks passed. Alien ships didn't return, no threats. No warnings. Instead, something else came. A message from Earth. Zara stood in front of the working comms system, listening in silence as the signal came through. Crackling, old and weak, but real. "Colony Meridia, this is Earth Command. We received your emergency signal. 7 weeks late. Are you still there?" Her lips trembled. She pressed the mic button. "Yes. We're still here." There was a pause. "God. You actually survived." She looked around at the people rebuilding walls, planting seeds, carrying beams. Barely, she said. But yes, we did. The next day, Earth Command sent a ship. It arrived in orbit and scanned the colony. They couldn't believe it. A small human settlement had destroyed elite alien forces, downed a purifier, and disabled an invasion fleet. The Earth crew landed. Soldiers, scientists, doctors, they walked the burned land in silence. They saw the wall of heroes. They saw the children helping rebuild. They saw Mira, still alive in the pod, and then they saluted Zara. "You fought like a full military unit," the Earth commander said. "We weren't," Zara replied. "We were farmers, engineers, miners." The commander paused. "You're more than that now." Soon, the story of Meridia reached every human world. News channels called it the colony that fought back. Students studied their tactics. Soldiers watched their battle logs. The names of Rami, Mira, Buzz, Clunker, and Zara became legends. But to Zara, none of it felt like glory. It just felt like home, one worth protecting, at any cost. A few weeks later, Mira finally opened her eyes. She was weak, but her first words made Zara laugh. "Did we win?" Zara nodded. "We're still here." Buzz beeped twice. Clunker waved his only hand. Mira smiled faintly. "Then we won." Months passed. Meridia became stronger. Earth sent supplies and builders, but the colonists stayed in charge. Zara refused to leave. So did Mira. And the others. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were warriors, defenders of the frontier. Then, one day, another alien message appeared. Not a threat, a warning. "This is a resistance group from inside the enemy empire. We heard what your colony did. You are not alone. Others are rising, but we need help. We need humans." Zara listened carefully. She stood up, looked out at the hills. Then she spoke. "Send us the coordinates. Meridia hears you." And so the colony that once was seen as weak became the spark that lit a fire across the stars. Because the galaxy had finally learned something important. Humans are never just easy targets. They are the storm you never see coming, and once they rise, they don't fall quietly. They fight back, forever. The end